You know that feeling when a little idea pops into your head, maybe starting your own thing or like
Uh-huh.
even doing a total career switch?
Oh, yeah.
It feels exciting, right?
Yeah.
But then the doubts creep in. Like, okay, where do you even begin if you don't have loads of experience or, a giant pile of cash?
Oh, absolutely. That spark of wanting to create something new, it can hit anyone, really, no matter what you've done before or what your bank account looks like.
Right.
And while it might seem like this huge mountain to climb, trust me, there are definitely some solid footholds you can grab onto.
Exactly. And that's what we're really digging into today. We've looked at all sorts of advice, everything from like the U.S. Small Business Administration, some insights from Park University,
Yeah, good stuff,
there,
so.
to real stories from entrepreneurs on YouTube and in Forbes, and even like some chatter from folks on Reddit.
Right, covering all the bases.
Our goal, to pull out the genuinely useful step-by-step stuff for anyone who's thinking, hey, I want to start a business, even if you're literally starting with, well, next to nothing.
Right, we're kind of like your personal guides through all that information, pointing out the really important bits so you can, get started without feeling like your brain's going to explode from overload.
Okay, so let's get down to it then. Where does this whole adventure actually kick off? It seems like figuring out what business to start is the first big question mark.
That's spot on, yeah. And what's really interesting is that some of the folks we looked at suggest it's less about having this totally unique, never-seen-before idea
Hmm.
and more about connecting with something you already care about.
Tell me more. Like Simon Squibb, for
Mhm.
instance. He talks about how a business often grows from just a gut feeling, right? A desire to make a change, maybe.
Exactly that. Not necessarily a fully fleshed out business plan from day one.
Hmm.
His big thing is finding what you're truly passionate about, what genuinely lights you up.
Okay.
His own agency, Fluid, is a perfect example. I mean, there were tons of marketing agencies out there already.
Mhm.
But his personal drive to help businesses and his specific way of approaching it made his stand out. The core idea wasn't brand new, but his passion and like a fresh perspective made all the difference.
So it's totally fine if your first idea isn't some mind-blowing invention. That's actually kind of a relief to hear, you
Oh,
know?
absolutely. Yeah. The folks at Wandering Aimfully even have this cool exercise they call thrustness.
Thrustness.
Yeah. Imagine 3 columns.
Yeah.
First, things you genuinely enjoy doing that involve some kind of work.
Right.
Second, different ways you could actually put that work out into the world. And then in the third column, you just brainstorm potential business ideas by seeing where those first two overlap.
I like that.
It's a really practical way to just get those initial thoughts bubbling up.
That sounds like a super approachable way to start. Just getting some ideas down without the pressure of needing $1 million concept right away.
It really takes the pressure off. And once you've got a few initial thoughts, Noel Randall emphasizes getting really clear on what your business actually is.
Okay, defining it.
Yeah. Who are you trying to help? Who are your customers? And specifically, how are you going to help them? Answering those basic questions is like fundamental.
Okay, so you've got a little spark of an idea. You're thinking about what drives you and what you want to do.
Yeah.
What's the next thing you should be thinking about? You can't just stay in the daydreaming phase forever. Wow.
Nope, definitely not. You've got to start moving towards putting some kind of plan in place, even if it's super simple at first.
Right.
Noelle Randall talks about that shift from just having an idea to actually planning some action. And she really stresses the power of setting some money goals.
The money part.
Yeah, even if you start small, like aiming to make an extra $1,000 a month.
Okay.
Her point is that even seemingly small ventures can often reach that kind of income, It makes it feel achievable.
$1,000 a month. Yeah, that feels way less overwhelming than trying to plan some massive, complicated business from scratch.
Exactly. And while the U.S. Small Business Administration talks about how important a business plan is as a general guide, like a roadmap,
Mhm. They also mention this idea of a lean startup business plan. Think of it as focusing on the absolute essentials without getting bogged down in tons of detail right at the beginning.
so less intimidating.
Much less. It's a more flexible way to get started.
So you don't necessarily need to spend weeks and weeks writing this huge document that might just sit on a shelf.
Not in the very early stages, no.
Yeah.
The key is to have some direction, yeah, but without getting stuck in over-planning.
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
Now, something I think a lot of people worry about is feeling like they just don't know enough.
Yeah.
There's so much advice out there about starting a business where do you even begin to learn without feeling completely lost?
That's a really fair concern. Yeah, you definitely need to learn as you go, as Noelle Randall points out. You need to understand your business, your industry, all that good stuff.
Right.
But she also warns against getting sucked into this, like, endless pit of information. Trying to absorb too much from too many different places can actually make things more confusing. Okay, so it's better to focus, get good information from just a few reliable sources.
Absolutely. Think quality over quantity. Finding a couple of trusted voices or resources can be way more effective.
Gotcha.
Forbes even mentioned the HBR IdeaCast podcast as a great free resource that takes business ideas and looks at them in a really practical way.
Oh, nice.
And Wandering aimfully suggests reading books for useful tips and inspiration, recommending authors like Seth Godin and his book Purple Tau.
Good recommendations.
Yeah.
But the big thing is to actually use what you're learning, right?
Yeah.
Not just keep reading and researching forever and ever.
Exactly that, yeah. Wandering aimfully cautions against getting stuck in that learning loop without ever taking action. Learning is important, totally, but it's got to go hand in hand with actually doing things.
Okay, so you've got a basic idea, a simple plan, you're starting to learn the ropes. What about those first practical steps? How do you start making your business feel like a real thing without, emptying your wallet?
Right, the practical stuff. There are actually a ton of free or really cheap things you can do. Noelle Randall gives some great examples.
Like what?
Just choosing a business name, getting a professional-looking email address through Gmail or Yahoo. Those are often free or super low cost.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can even start with a dedicated phone line just using your cell phone with a professional voicemail message. These little things can make a surprisingly big difference in how credible you seem.
That's really encouraging. You don't need to invest in all the fancy stuff right away then.
Not at all. She also mentions free website builders like Wix as a great way to get a basic online presence up and running.
Okay, Wix, yeah.
And this is important. You can even get a free EIN, which is like a social security number for your business, from the government website, irs.gov.
Oh, wow, free.
Yep, free. These fundamental things are often way more accessible than people think.
All right, you've got the basics covered. Now for the big question that every new business faces. How do you find those first customers without a massive marketing budget?
Yeah, the million-dollar question, right? The key here is to really use those free resources we've already talked about.
Like social media.
Exactly. Noelle Randall really emphasizes using free social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram to start getting the word out about your business and connecting with the people you want to reach.
Okay.
This really circles back to that initial step of figuring out exactly who your ideal customer is.
So actually using those platforms to talk to people, not just posting and hoping for the best.
Exactly, yeah. And the folks at Wandering aimfully highlight how crucial it is to have real conversations with people who might be your customer.
Right, like actually talking.
Don't just guess what they need. Actually talk to them, understand their problems, their pain points. They suggest that talking in person or even over video calls can be really helpful for picking up on their tone and really understanding what they're struggling with,
That makes so much sense. You can learn so much more from a real conversation than just through emails or surveys, I bet.
Absolutely. Hearing their tone of voice, the way they describe their frustrations, that's gold. Pure gold for figuring out how your business can really help them.
Starting a business could be a bit of a roller coaster, though, right? Especially when it's your first time. How do you deal with those moments when you start to doubt yourself? Because that happens.
Oh, it definitely happens. Self-doubt is super common, as Wandering aimfully points out. It's a normal part of the process.
Okay, good to know it's normal.
Totally. The trick is to acknowledge those feelings, but not let them stop you. Taking action, even really small steps, can actually help you build confidence.
Right.
They also suggest trying to minimize distractions.
Yeah.
Things that can become an easy way to avoid facing those doubts.
It's like building a muscle, isn't it?
Yeah,
The more you push through those uncomfortable feelings, hopefully the easier it gets.
precisely. Yeah. And having support around you is also really important. Training Magazine talks about how valuable mentorship is for people starting businesses.
Yeah, mentors.
Noting that businesses with mentors tend to stick around much longer. In fact, a huge number, like 89% of small business owners who don't have a mentor wish they did.
Wow, 89%. That's a pretty significant number. But how do you actually find a mentor? It's not like you can just, order one online.
No, unfortunately not. Training Magazine suggests getting involved in your local chamber of commerce or going to other community events.
Networking, basically.
Exactly. It's a great way to meet people and potentially find someone who's been there and done that. They also point out that even experienced business owners can act as mentors to their own employees, which can be really beneficial for everyone involved.
So it's about actively putting yourself out there and looking for opportunities to connect with people who have more experience.
Mm,
Makes sense.
exactly. Now, another big thing that a lot of people worry about when starting out is the money side of things. Funding, that can feel like a huge obstacle.
Definitely. You hear so much about needing tons of money just to get off the ground. It's intimidating.
Yeah, it is. The U.S. Small Business Administration acknowledges that funding is a major concern. They briefly mention using your own money to start, which is often called bootstrapping.
Bootstrapping, right?
But they also advise being really careful if you're thinking about using retirement funds because of potential penalties and fees. You got to watch out for that.
Yeah, definitely good to be cautious with your long-term savings.
They also bring up crowdfunding as a potentially less risky way to get some initial funding.
Oh, yeah. How does that work?
Well, people basically donate to your idea, often in exchange for like a reward or a gift rather than a share of your company. It can be a good option for creative projects or products sometimes.
That's interesting. So people are supporting you because they like what you're doing and want to see it happen, not necessarily looking for a financial return right away.
Exactly. And for those who need more substantial funding, the SBA mentions the possibility of getting small business loans.
Okay. The loan route.
Although they do emphasize that you'll usually need a solid business plan and some financial projections. You gotta have your ducks in a row for that.
Right. Makes sense.
They also mention SBA-backed loans, which can be an option if you don't qualify for traditional loans, and they have this tool called Lender Match that can help connect you with potential lenders.
So there are different avenues to explore for funding depending on what you need and what your situation is. Good to know there are options.
Absolutely. And as you start getting customers, it becomes even more important to really understand who you're trying to reach.
Mm.
Coursera introduces this idea of a niche market,
A niche, yeah. Heard that term.
which is basically a really specific group of customers who share certain characteristics. Focusing on a niche can be a super effective way for smaller businesses to compete with bigger companies.
So instead of trying to appeal to absolutely everyone, you really focus your energy on a particular group of people.
Exactly. Coursera mentions things like demographics,
Right.
age, location, income, as well as psychographics, their values, interests, lifestyle, and even firmographics if you're selling to other businesses.
Okay.
Understanding these things helps you target your efforts much more effectively. Less wasted effort.
Which brings us to marketing in general.
Hmm?
It feels like the way you get the word out is always changing,
Mm-hmm.
especially with all the technology.
Yeah.
What are some key marketing ideas to keep in mind, like right now?
Yeah, it moves fast, doesn't it? Park University talks about how marketing is constantly evolving and how important it is to have a connected strategy. They highlight the big shift towards digital marketing
Right, online stuff.
and how it can be really useful because you can target specific people and importantly see what's working in real time. You get feedback quickly.
So while old school marketing still has its place maybe, most new businesses should really be thinking digital first.
For reaching a lot of people, especially younger folks and those who are online a lot, yeah, definitely. Park University stresses knowing what makes your business different, your unique value proposition, or UVP.
What makes you special?
Exactly. They also talk about content marketing, which is basically creating helpful, useful stuff for your audience, not just selling all the time.
Providing value.
Right. And social media strategies, emphasizing being real, using short videos, which are huge now, and maybe working with smaller online personalities, micro-influencers, in 2025.
It's all about connecting with people in a genuine and interesting way, sounds like.
Precisely. And making your marketing feel personal to different groups of customers, that segmentation is becoming more and more important too.
So bringing it all together then, thinking big picture, what are the really important things to remember if you want to build a business that actually lasts? Sustainable growth.
Okay, yeah. The Founders Network emphasizes having a basic plan for your money and keeping track of how your business is doing regularly. You need to know your numbers.
Track performance.
Got it. They also stress being able to change and adapt as things in the business world change. You can't be too rigid.
Right.
Ali Abdal's experience with his online course is a great example of that, how a product can evolve based on what people, your customers, are telling you.
That ability to be flexible and make adjustments sounds super important, probably one of the most important things.
Absolutely. And Wandering Aimfully, along with Ali Abdaal, reminds us that building a successful business takes time, it takes effort, and, crucially, learning from the things that don't quite work out. The mistakes.
Yeah, it's usually not an overnight success story, is it?
Rarely ever. And, to maybe give people some hope, the Financial Diet shared some encouraging numbers about how many small businesses actually stick around for several years.
Really?
Yeah, it's not as doom and gloom as some people might think. Failure isn't inevitable.
That's good to hear, because you always hear the scary statistics.
Exactly. A good chunk of small businesses do continue to operate for a significant amount of time, which is a really important thing to keep in mind.
So, to wrap things up then, if you're listening and you've got that itch to start something, but you're worried about not having experience or much money, it really sounds like it comes down to figuring out what you're passionate about, taking those first practical steps, using all the free resources out there, committing to keep learning as you go,
Yeah, continuous learning.
and really connecting with the people you actually want to serve, understanding them.
That's a fantastic summary. Yeah. The journey might not always be glamorous, lots of hard work. But as we've seen from all these different sources, it's often way more doable than it might seem at first glance.
So for you listening right now, what's maybe one small thing you can do today based on our conversation? Maybe it's just writing down that business idea you've been thinking about for ages,
Just get it on paper.
or doing a quick search online about a niche you're interested in, or maybe even reaching out to one person who might be a potential customer. Just one person.
Yeah, one small action.
Think of that as your very first step on your own unique adventure, your starting line.